Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Maggie, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you this morning?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me, Sifu. It's a pleasure to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm exceptional. Getting better every day, right?
Yes.
Tiny little bit, but it matters, right? Every time when we read something, we see something, we expand our knowledge. But acquiring knowledge, I think it's not enough. I think we actually have to use that knowledge.
Yes. Somebody told me once, knowledge is like makeup. It only works when applied.
I love it. Being that I don't wear any, so I have to wear. I have to put the makeup in my forehead.
It sticks with me, like.
I got to tell you, I was thrilled that we're going to have this conversation today. We spoke briefly the other day, and I was just thrilled that you said yes to coming on the show. You have so much to share with us, and I'm delighted that you said yes to the podcast. Let's get into who you are and who you've become, because you've become a powerhouse. Let's talk about your childhood. I'm going to take you way back.
Wow.
Way back.
Okay.
So tell me where you were born. And here's the other one. Who influenced you before the age of 10? And then we'll keep going up incrementally.
Okay. So I was born in Poland under the communist regime, if you can imagine. So up until I think about 10, because I was born in, I'm going to give out my age, but I was born 1978, and in 1989, the communist regime collapsed in Poland. So I was about 11 when it did. So I still remember some fun things from that period. Who influenced me the most, I guess, at that age? My parents, especially one of my grandparents, so my maternal grandfather. And I did have some teachers that did impact me well. And I had a coach. I actually started maybe about that age, basketball. So I had a good coach, basketball coach. So I would say, those were the people.
Basketball coach. Tell me about that. How did they influence you?
So I think it was grade 4. We kind of like a class in my school was created that was more focused on basketball. I'm tall, so natural pick for this, and I actually liked it. How he influenced us, it was really a good mix of pushing us to be the best and grow as a team, but also doing it in a way that was motivating rather than demotivating, right? Because I always find that depending on the discipline, and especially like in older times, there was a lot of coaching that was very negative. And I don't believe in that type of coaching. And I had a pleasure to have had a coach who didn't use that, right? Didn't use the diminishing, the screaming, whatever, but did it in a positive way.
Nice. And when we talk about somebody who doesn't demoralize us, that's big, because they are looking at not empowering us because they can empower us, but they can show us how we can empower ourselves, right? I think that's an important aspect for having someone in your corner, if you will.
Yeah.
And you also said your parents. How did they influence you? Obviously, if you live with your parents, they're going to influence you one way or the other. Was it a positive influence?
So there was a bit of both, I have to say. I would say positively is both of my parents are very resilient and driven in their own ways. My dad is very more extroverted and very social. My mom tends to be very quiet and shy, and I'm somewhere in between. But they're both very driven in their own end and very resilient. So that definitely was a positive thing, right? No matter what they had in their life going on, they would just figure it out and push through and became resourceful and whatever, right? In again, their own ways. So that was a positive part. Negative part was that they actually divorced when I was 11, because that's when the communist regime collapsed. Like the divorces were allowed. I don't think they were allowed during communist regime, or it was difficult. I don't fully remember. So they divorced. So before that divorce, I guess their relationship, or maybe fights that they have, taught me how not to have a relationship, or what not to do. And through that, I guess I learned how to build more positive relationships with people. So
It's very interesting that you said they could not divorce because of the power that would be.
mhm.
They probably, without you knowing it necessarily, they probably felt the relief
And
when they were.
I agree. I felt the relief. So I have to tell you, the one thing that I learned is never be in a relationship that you don't want to be in. And if you're staying because you're thinking that you're doing it for the benefit of others, you don't. As a child, hearing your parents have verbal fights, like my parents, there was no violence, no nothing of that. It impacts you. I was ashamed. I didn't want to hear it, and so on. So when my parents divorced and my dad was present in my life, whole life, and he lived close, I was relieved I didn't have to listen to it. I actually was. So, yeah.
So you all escaped this prison, if you will. Right?
Mhm.
But your parents escaped a different prison as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so did you, right? Everybody had a different escape, if you will.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
when you look at I guess the essence of family, there's so many dynamics that we
Mhm.
come at, right?
Yeah.
What would you say were your learning experiences from before your parents got divorced and afterwards?
Before, it's actually funny because most of what I remember before is the fights.
Mm,
I actually don't have many memories that are happy.
positive, right?
I have that are more positive. I have a few memories, like when my sister was born. I remember, like, my sister's 5 years younger than me. And I remember I have this vivid memory of her being a baby and lying in the crib and having those like little fists, and me standing there just like admiring this little
That's cute.
beautiful baby. So I have those memories. Um and I'm sure we had, but it's funny, like I can't really remember that much. But then after, what I remember is feeling that relief, but also feeling that the love that my parents had for me were always there. Like that didn't change. My dad was still present. He was still there. And maybe I could feel it more because it wasn't interrupted by the fights, right? Another thing that maybe my grandparents taught me is that I also remember that my grandparents were putting their opinions into the relationship, which I don't think it helped from what I remember. So another thing that I learned, and my parents know that, I do not allow my parents to express their opinions without me asking in any relationships I have. It might be very harsh, but I guess that's the learning I got. And I was like, no, unless I ask you.
It's very interesting that you say that because in so many movies, if you will, a lot of times you got to meet the family, and then you wind up marrying the family. You
Mhm.
don't marry the one person, right? You marry the whole family, the cousins, they all come in when you're like, what are you doing here? Um, it's the dichotomy of a family is very, it could be empowering, yet it can be very destructive,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides that basketball coach, let's move on. You became free. Your parents became, your whole family, your whole world became free
Mhm.
at the age of 11. Between the age of 11 and 20 even, where was the influences for you? Because your life changed. There
Change.
was no more, I guess, dictatorship, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So that definitely opened the freedom to travel. And, my dad used to work in Western Germany and then in Germany for some time, like back and forth, back and forth. And also I have a godmother who immigrated to France during communist regime. But like allowing us to travel, that was definitely big influences. So I traveled to see the family through my dad. I also, so I'll get to that, but I started dancing in like a Polish folk / modern group at the age of like, I think 14 or 15 for 6 years. So that was a big influence. But we traveled and that opened my eye to say, hey, like there is all these ways of living. There's all these opportunities out there that people like me, not that different,
Right.
I want that. I want that too, right? So like it opened up a bit of like even bigger, some sort of dreaming, but also knowing that I could probably do that. Like again, I'm meeting those people. They're not that much different. So why not? So traveling was a big influence. Then dancing in that group because we were a very tight group. And again, you have coaches, you're learning, you're pushing your limits to what you can do and so on. And I started relatively late. Again, I was 14, 15, I didn't start dancing at 3. So I had to, and being tall and skinny, I had to push myself to like gain the flexibility that was needed. Um, but then also friendship that it created and the travel. So that was big. And then if you think about 20, I'm just trying to think.
I am taking you back, aren't I?
Yes, yes, you are. Of course, like continued parents, my grandfather, and I'm gonna mention my grandfather um, from my mom's side because he was definitely the one that was spending a lot of time with us, right? Like my parents and most of my grandparents, I don't know about you, but in our generation, they weren't necessarily taught or raised where they knew how to spend time with children, right? So, like with my paternal grandparents, I love them, but we didn't have a big relationship because we never spent time together. Like we were next to each other, even if I was there, let's say in their cottage, like in their house in the country, I was like, okay, go and do your thing, which is great for the child. Don't get me wrong, right? Like you're roaming, being bored, doing things with friends, like it's great but it also builds a different relationship as opposed to when you're spending time and talking and playing games and so on. So my maternal grandfather would do that with us, with his grandchildren. And for me, also like what I admired about him, it's also the resilience, right? He's the generation that experienced war. He was actually born in current Ukraine that used to be Poland before World War II. And then they were forced to move after the war when European borders changed. So leaving everything, this teenage boy, and he was actually like escaped Russian, communist soldiers would have
Right.
redirected him and his father to Siberia. He escaped that. And then going to the new Poland, that used to be Germany, new part, and then being prosecuted for or had to hide and so on for fighting on the non-communist clandestine army, Polish army against Germany. And going through all that in life and always staying positive and optimistic and sort of adapting with the changing times. He would learn how to use computer and things like that. It's always inspiring. I always get back to it. Sometimes when we have a bad day and we're like feeling sorry for ourselves, I always think about him. Like, I have nothing to feel sorry about.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's so unless we personally go through something like what your grandfather went to, it's so hard to fully grasp
Hmm.
because we
Hmm.
weren't there. We didn't go through the emotions, the feelings.
Hmm.
But the fact that you know it, you know what he went through, it touches you, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you understand the difficulty he went through. The fact that he was able to escape, I mean, that's beautiful that he was
Yeah.
able to do that. Let me ask you, when you started traveling and you said people were like me, but did you not start to notice different cultures, different
Yeah.
ways of people doing things? How did that impact you?
That's a good question. Well, one thing, it definitely motivated me to learn languages, right? Nobody learns Polish, right? Like, nobody's like, oh, I'm gonna learn Polish one day. So once you start traveling, you realize, you need languages. So I actually started with French, just because of my godmother, and then English became that. But how did it impact me? How I guess it made me realize, so like the one thing is that, yeah, there isn't one perfect way to do things. That there are so many point of views and so many ways of living, and none of it is like one perfect way. They all work. And I think, just moving back to coaching, like that's the thing, right? When you coach your my clients, but if you're a different coach, when you coach your trainees or your clients, is like you can achieve whatever you want many different ways, and you just find the best one for the person, right? You just find the best way to live your own life. There's no one perfect way, one perfect philosophy.
It's interesting that you see it that way, and we need all of us to see it that way. There is not one perfect way to do something, and so many times you see people dictators in their own world, their own
Mhm.
mind. You got to do it this way. This is the only way.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, but they did it this way and they did it this way. And there's
Yeah.
many ways.
Mhm.
And when we consider what we do with our lives, how do we engage in the journey that we've taken? How do we even navigate that which is in front of us?
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the things that probably seeing all that you've seen has made you the person you are today, because without those experiences,
For sure.
you would be somebody else, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
It's interesting how the perspectives that we see in the world, they impact us,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
positive or negative, either way. What was the one takeaway that you saw, if you had to say there's one thing before your 20th birthday that really impacted you? What would that
Before my 20th birthday.
be? Yes.
One thing. Oh my God, that's a hard question. Okay, one thing.
You can say two if it's okay.
I can say. I would say definitely the one thing is that we're different as human beings and yet the same in certain things, right? No matter the culture, no matter where we come from, and so on. Of course, we have the influences of our experiences that make us different and unique.
Mhm.
And we're all equal and have that opportunity. Like we can all create our opportunities. And not that I understood that, but like I felt that, in that, you know what? Even though I'm I was born in another communist regime, even though I was Polish, which in Europe, or at least used to feel like a lower class citizen when you were from Eastern Europe and not from Western Europe. Or that was like, the social programming, maybe through history or some other experiences. Your wishes and your dreams are not less or less worthy than everybody else's, because ultimately when you look at human beings, we're all kind of the same. We all want different things and so on, but like we have those equal birthrights, and your wish is not more valuable than mine, right? The dream, or more worthy than mine, no matter where you're coming from. So I guess that would be the biggest one thing that I realized between the age of 0 or 1 and 20.
Well, that's a huge realization, because the way I put it is, we all live in our own little world. You live in yours, I live in mine,
Mhm,
but we all share a world together, right?
mhm.
So if
That's
there's 8 billion worlds that we're all, everybody's in their own little world, but we all share this wonderful world together. And it's, how do we harmonize to be able to function properly
Mhm,
together? How do we
mhm,
see a different person who is in their own world and doing their own thing? And then how do we connect? So it's that connection. It's that which unites us, which we're so similar yet
mhm.
so different.
Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful thing.
yeah. Agree.
So let's move on.
Okay.
2030. Tell me anything that you recall that really you started to reframe your life. What impacted you around that time?
Yeah, so there was a lot going on in that time. So I started university, I think I was 18, 19. I moved away, so I went to university kind of in the city between Berlin and Warsaw, old university, and it was one of the new programs that universities were getting ready, because Poland was entering European Union, and there was talk, like, of course every country in European Union has a quota of European Union civil servants, right? So Poland wasn't there in the European Union, but like universities knew that, so they were starting to prepare. And I found this brand new program that was sort of meant for that, to prepare the graduates to potentially go into, as European Union citizen, is civil servants. But I just liked the curriculum. I didn't even think like, oh, maybe I'll be a European Union civil servant, because it was still not sure. But I liked the curriculum. So I applied to go, but it was very elite. There was maybe 40 spots for entire Poland, the only one. And I passed the exams, but the first time I didn't get in. I didn't have enough score, enough high points to get in. So I decided, to my dad's displeasure, to kind of take a sabbatical year and prepare better for the exam, and like do things, still stay at home, and maybe continue dancing and do other things, but try again. I had a huge fight with my dad over it, but I'm a pretty stubborn Sagittarius, so I just went for it. And then next year I got in. So I did that master's program in the city, about 250 kilometers. So what is it, 200 miles away from home, which was a great experience. And then after that, as I was studying that, I went also into postgraduate school of translation and interpreting. So by then my English and French were pretty advanced. And I lost you, and I'm not sure I'm still alive. So I don't know if I should wait for Ritu. We'll give it a couple minutes to see if who can join us. And if not, we'll see. I'm sorry for technical difficulties. If you're watching this live, hopefully Sifu will rejoin quickly. Let me check on with him very quickly. I apologize, everybody, for the challenges. Okay. Now, in the meantime, maybe if you're watching this live and you're like, what's going on? I would love to, if you have any questions as we're talking with Sifu, just put them in the comments and I will be happy to go after and answer them. Or if you have any comments, we would love to see them. Let us know your thoughts. I don't want to go on about my story. If Sifu has challenges and cannot rejoin, we might need to reschedule, but I will give it a minute.
Jack, I don't know, something happened with the internet here. I heard loud noises.
Oh no, but you're back. I'm glad you're back.
I'm so sorry about that. I have
It's
no idea
okay.
what happened. Thank you for staying and hanging out, and everybody who hung out with us. I appreciate it. I'm so sorry. Therefore, I would love for you to continue. I was like, whoa, no. Today we had one of the transformers outside in the corner blew up.
Oh
So
no.
company
Ouch.
there for about 20 hours. And
Oh
then
wow.
we've had this happen 3 times. Same thing has blown up. I was like, not again. So
No.
hopefully we're good. But
That's
thank
great.
you so much. Resilience, right?
Resilient. That's right. That's right.
what it takes.
You know, technology is great when it works, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. It is what it is.
You have no idea. I was juggling balls. I was throwing things. All worked. So I'm back. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you've come to be an incredible human being. Tell us what made you start doing what you currently do, and take us into those steps that made you decide in your journey.
Okay. Yeah. So quickly after I graduated from the university and I was doing some other schooling, and the situation in Poland at that time, like Poland was going through reforms and getting into like more of a democracy and the free market and things like that. But it was a tough time for Poland. So when I graduated, it was very high unemployment. I think like over 20%.
Mm.
And life was tough, but I did get jobs. I was in a big city. I spoke 2 languages, French and English. So I had some jobs, but I was making like, I don't know, $300 a month.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what? I can do my dream with $300 a month. And at that time, one of my colleagues told me about Canadian immigration process. And Canada is a bit different than US, Sifu. So there's a certain process where you can apply to get a permanent residency based on your education, your knowledge of languages, so on. They have a scoring system. And I thought, you know what, why not? Why not try when you're young? Nothing is holding you back necessarily. And the good thing is that it's like, oh, if I'm immigrating, there's no always like I can always come back, right? It's not this one-way ticket where you can't come back. I can always come back. So with my boyfriend, and then who became my first husband at the time. So husband at the time, I applied. He was part of the family. We got through and we got in. And I was looking for a job. The first job that I got was in a facility management industry. I became like a customer service, taking calls, sending plumbers to fix toilets kind of thing. But through that, I discovered that this industry was interesting. I didn't know much about it at the time, but I started talking about learning and improving yourself, everything. I love to learn. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to learn. Like, it's fine, right? So I started learning, and I actually had a good corporate career in that industry through a couple of employers. I went from a customer service representative through multiple different roles that allowed me to also understand business at a whole different level other than just school. And my last position was I was director of operations in an operation of 450 people. It's like was a service delivery line of business. So it was like a business within a business. My team was 30 people who were like, we were ensuring that operation ran well and everything was smooth and we were delivering to our clients and so on. And my VP was like this CEO of that little that department. I was, I guess, the CEO of that department. But throughout my career, at some point, there was a point when I burned out. Your typical, corporate America story. And that really got me thinking. And at that time, in the meantime, I divorced. I married somebody else. We have kids together. And my kids were little at that point. And I found myself thinking, like, what the hell are you doing? You're accomplishing some goals that are important to you in a professional life, but it cannot come at the cost of other things that are important to you. And that's personal life and personal relationships. And so, I'm grateful for this burnout because that made me realize, like, no, we got to balance that, right? Like, we need to bring the balance back. And because it was situational, and I'm a Sagittarius, and I felt trapped, and I don't like to feel trapped, I was like, never again. We will never again be in that position. So that got me thinking, well, okay, so what's next? What are you going to do? And, just changing companies or changing jobs wasn't the answer for me. So I came up with the idea, okay, I'll be on my own. And how I came to that is I was a people leader for many years. I was really good at coaching my employees. They were, I had success in helping them grow, not only in their roles, but in their careers and so on. And I loved that. That was the thing that was filling me up. That was the thing that was giving me energy. So I was like, okay, I'm great at coaching and I love business. I think it's fun. I think it's creative. I've done so many roles that I really understand it from all kinds of angles. And then, I did an MBA as well because I always wanted, and finally I did it. So I married that and started my coaching business, and I ran it on the side for a couple of years. And then when I was ready, I left corporate. I gave my resignation and I left. It wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. It was scary. I had a 6-figure job. I had all of the benefits. I had kids and mortgage and all that thing. So it wasn't easy, but I can make tough decisions.
And that is a tough decision because when you leave the comfort of a paycheck, it's a tough.
Mm-hmm.
I have been an entrepreneur since, my son was born, and I wasn't even in a corporation anymore. I was just working 2 days a week for somebody. Mm-hmm. I had kind of gone on my own, but I said, you know what? I'm kind of bored a little bit because I'm doing all this other stuff, but I want to keep doing what I enjoy, I love. And so I worked for somebody for 2 days a week, and they paid me well with my 2 days. And so when my son was born, I worked for that lady for 9 years, just 2 days a week. That was it, 9 years like that. And when my son was born, I actually said to her, you know, I'm going to stop working for you. Well, where are you going? Nowhere. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I want to spend more time with my son.
Mhm.
And she couldn't understand it. She's like, you only work for me 2 days a week. I said, yeah, that's too much time away from my son. And I appreciate the money you're giving me.
Mhm.
She tried as hard as she could to keep me. She's like, I'll triple your salary or I'll do this. And I'm like, it's not the money. It's life.
Yeah.
It's his life. And I want to share that. I want to be there. And I've never worked for anyone.
Wow, that's awesome.
My son is 23 now. But so 23 and 9 years. So that's how long I've been an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. That's
Because
awesome.
for me, it's about the value that we have, that we put on our own lives, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you decided to put the value to your own life, it
Mm-hmm.
changed for you. Everything changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
easy. Not easy. That's a hard decision. How tough was it in the beginning? And don't get me wrong, it probably does this right from time to time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how hard was it in the beginning for you?
It was hard. So there was a couple of things that make it hard, right? So there is when I ran it on the side, it was okay because I still had like more of my identity and like that cushion, right? Of I'm still getting paid, doing my work, and this is like a side hustle, right? So the hardness was more about juggling and balancing that. But by then, because I went through that burnout, I actually signed up for some coaching, like high performance habits coaching, that just changed my life. It even improved the way I worked in my corporate job. And I was like blown away by the results. So like I could manage that and still have the personal life I wanted to have. So that was, I wouldn't say, yeah, it was a challenge. It helped me grow, but like looking back, it wasn't such a big deal. But then when I left, so there was a couple of things. There was definitely financial challenges. Yes, we had a plan with my husband. Like we talked about it with my husband and we kind of had a plan, but still, you know, as you say, when you're used to that every 2 weeks, this is the amount of money you get, no matter what happens. And in entrepreneurship, that's not the case. There is a lot of mindset and emotional growth that you need to do in order to do that, right? So I always say like, that actually blew my mind how much you have to grow personally in your personal development as an entrepreneur, because I'm very driven. I love to learn. I really do. That's my strength. Like my top strength, Clifton strengths, it's learning. So even in my corporate world, I was always the one going after the next thing, not because I wanted more money or more prestige, but mostly because I wanted to learn. I was just getting bored in whatever role I did for some time. And I was like, okay, time to learn something new. And yet, even with that, entrepreneurship like blew my mind how much you have to grow personally and how condensed it has to be and so on. And that's tough. That's challenging. Sometimes you're like, I don't want this anymore. I need a break. I want a thing. But that's, So I would say that. And then the third thing is switching that more of an employee mindset to entrepreneurial. Again, I guess that was the least for me because definitely the department I spent the previous 7 years, I had like 3 positions in there, was quite entrepreneurial. And we had, we were a line of business, we were pushed to grow. We had a lot of independence with my boss and so on. So like we were somewhat like a mini business inside the business, but yet still like when you're on your own, there is some growth there. It's different, right? So I would say those three areas, like financial, the personal, emotional growth, and then just you really tuning into shedding that corporate leader identity and moving to, no, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach, I'm a business owner. Yeah.
It's definitely dynamic when you can see the difference in going from an employee to an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
because now responsibility is totally on you.
Only on you, right? There's nobody to blame. No boss, no coworkers. And you know what? I wanted that because part of my burnout was other people making decisions that weren't the best. And then me, and not only, but me and my colleagues having to implement those decisions, which led to my burnout. I was like, no more. I want to make my own decisions and live the consequences of those decisions no matter what. So I was definitely prepared for it, but I can see how some people might not be, right? Yeah.
Let me share this with you, and then we can come back and talk about it.
Yeah.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. Sifu Raphael, master instructor and founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to help you reach your full potential. Richard Walsh brings his strategic and tactical expertise to deliver rapid, lasting results for your business. Dr. Oliver T. Reed, the international multi-best-selling author and motivational speaker, known as the Writing Coach, will help you craft your messages with precision. Jose Escobar, a nationally recognized speaker and leader, will guide you in mastering personal development and leadership skills. This is more than just an event. It's a game-changing, skill-building experience. Walk away with communication prowess that transforms your personal and professional life. Speaking Prowess, where communication becomes your superpower. Reserve your seat now.
That sounds like a great event.
It is. And I know that your birthday is on the 23rd.
Yes, right in the middle.
We'll have to cut a cake for you. One of the things that communication has been such a huge aspect for me. It's the words we use for ourselves. I'm even thinking of your grandfather. I mean, what words was he thinking?
Mhm.
He went through what he went through. And not only just your grandfather, but anybody who went through something like that. Because sometimes we had no voice. We could not speak. And if the words that we spoke could land us in jail or in a coffin, grave. And we forget in the freedoms that we have, how so many people died for us to be able to speak what we speak, to be able to even be on this show today, have the freedom to share our stories. And to anybody listening, thank you so much for being here with us and hanging out while my power went out. But consider the words that land on us or the words we say that land on someone else. They have impact.
They do.
That's why I'm excited about this event. And we're also having we have so much going on. We have a masterclass on September 13th, and that one, I'm going to throw it in here. So if you guys want to join us, that's absolutely free. But actually, it is not. I got to tell you one thing. It is, you're going to pay with the most expensive form of payment you have.
Time.
Time. But is it worth your time to invest 90 minutes that can actually help you elevate you? How much time have you spent on becoming who you are?
Mhm.
I'm asking you that question.
Oh, that's a question to me. I don't know, all my life.
What if somebody said, put a price on it, on all the knowledge that you've acquired?
There's no price. You
There's-
can't put a price on it.
Right?
You can't.
It's incredible when we learn something. And one of the things every morning I pray, and then after my prayer I thank God for the gifts He's given me.
Mhm.
But if I just take those gifts and I don't share them,
Mhm.
have no value,
Mhm.
have zero value. Imagine if you open all my closet and there's all my gifts, and yet I close it and you can't have any. I can't share them with you.
Yeah, the parable of talents, right?
Yes. So it's important
Mhm.
for all of us, and it's important for you to share your gifts. And thank you for sharing your gifts with us today. Why you saw you had burnout, and you made a decision, a tough decision. That it's so fear-based for so many people that they continue that job, that dead-end job, or a job they hate going to because of that fear, to really take on the entrepreneurial spirit, the journey. You took it.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question. It's kind of personal.
Yep.
Did you do it because you wanted to make money, or did you do it because you wanted to change lives?
Both. To honestly, both.
Good answer. It should be both.
Um, One, because I realized and the industry that I work with deals with large corporations. And in that burnout experience, it was really a situation where, again, like, you couldn't win. And no matter how much you hard tried, you were failing for different reasons, no matter how good you were. And it was for what? For the big corporation to make more money? Like, you know what I mean? Like, at least if you work hard and you try it and you do your best and you see you make an impact, it's motivating and fulfilling. And money has, in that moment, nothing to do with it, right? And I said, like, no, I want to make an impact and I want to see it. I don't want it where you can't see it, because you're dealing with this faceless organization that all they want from you is perfection and saving them money. And that's definitely not motivating for me. So then I realized that I have all this knowledge and I have all this experience. And I love seeing people grow and see how their confidence grows when you help them succeed, because I've seen it in my team and I had less and less time to do it, right? And I'm like, I want to see that every day. That matters. And at the same time, yeah, I have family to cater for. And I definitely didn't move to Canada just to survive. I want to thrive. And for that, you need money. So, and I did realize that in entrepreneurship, yes, there is a lot of risk, but there's also a lot of more potential for me to grow my finances than what I had in a corporate world, given I was more in like a technical, very engineering, male dominated environment where I'm not an engineer, I'm not a male. So, like, my career, at least I was seeing like, oh, it's going to slow down. So my potential for financial growth was kind of slowing down. At least that was my experience. Maybe that's not true, but that was, my how I thought about it. So yeah, it was both, and a few other reasons, but
No, I think it's important for us to understand that business is business, and business will not be there without the finances.
yeah,
Right? And we need money. But here's the thing, right? If let's say you make $500,000 working for a company, or even 100,000, whatever it is, you're only helping your family and the business that you're working for. And because of your impact, you may be affecting some of the people that work there, maybe some clients. But the minute you go into the entrepreneurial journey, you're impacting way more.
Yes.
You're hitting a lot more people.
Yes.
You're helping the economy. You're helping so many. You're helping your own family. You're helping your community. You're helping wherever that business is to, and it has to thrive, or to help other people. But you may be impacting other families. While you were working for one person, you may have only been impacting that company. But the minute you start to employ other people or even purchase stuff for your company, for your business, you're impacting those employees from the other companies that you're buying goods from. So it's a huge, what people don't see is that an entrepreneur really affects many more people than just one person who's working at a company.
Yeah.
Right. So it's so dynamic and beautiful when you look at it. Right?
Yeah. I definitely thought that I could have more impact or more meaningful impact just going on my own. That was, that's what I thought.
Well, it's true. So tell me who, let's call him Avatar, but actually who is your ideal client that you love to work with?
My ideal client is a service-based, most of the time, business owner who wants to grow their business. Now, they could be in their beginning stages, just like me. They registered the business, they have this side hustle, they want to grow it to the point where they can quit their job. And it could be everything in between. They're scaling, and now they have a team, and they're growing. So they could have, in terms of revenue, multi-million-dollar revenue. But I always say, like, business is about solving problems. You solve the problem of a beginning, I don't have any clients, to then, okay, how do I serve all those clients? And now I have to have people, and now I have people, and that brings challenges. So you're always solving problems for your customer in your business. So I'm going in there because of my experience and my education. I can help businesses on multiple levels. Like, with the corporate world, I worked for small businesses and larger, and we grew and we expanded and, successfully. So I help them there with strategy and operational excellence, and people leadership, but also systems, processes, and my clients with the high performance habits of how to do it in a way that doesn't burn them out, that they can live the life that they want. Because I definitely didn't start my business to burn out again. I started my business to create a life that I love, and I want the same for my clients. So I bring that as well to the mix.
I love that. But you mentioned something that, and you kind of said it really quick, high performance habits.
Mm-hmm.
How important are they, and why should we have habits in business?
They are, for me, they're everything. They're critical in the way you operate. How I define it is when you think and feel and operate at your best. It doesn't mean you're always 110%. Sometimes your best is 80%. But I always think about, like, athletes, right? A professional athlete's worst day is still way better than my best. Right? Like, let's say basketball, right? My best basketball, it's been a while since I played. Their worst day is still way better than my best, just because they're at a different level, right? So when you grow your habits, when you grow your high performance, your worst day will still be way better than your best day 10 years ago, let's say. And as human beings, we are creatures of habits, right? So kind of like programming yourself to have habits that serve you and not things that don't just elevates the way you operate. You can accomplish more, you don't burn out, you can live your best life, feel, better. You think clearer, you make better decisions for your business. So all those things, that's really important.
I agree 100%. when we think about habits, habits are things that we don't actually think about. But in order to have high performance habits, we actually have to think about them, don't
Think about the habits.
we? Yeah.
Well,
Well,
you need to, yeah, no, I agree. You need to think about them and establish them, right? They don't just happen. It has to be intentional and it takes time, right? Habits, like people say, like, oh, to establish habits, 21 days. No, it's just to start it. To actually have a habit that becomes just part of what you do and you don't necessarily waste as much energy to think about it, you do it, is 16 months minimum. At least according to some studies I read, 16 months. And that, like, even from my experience, I can say, yeah, there are some habits now that I've established 5 years ago where I still change them occasionally because your life changes, your circumstances change. And I always say you don't want to be like it's not you trying to fit a box of a habit that you created 5 years ago and your life changed, right? You adapt that. So there's always some intention to it, but it does take time to develop it to the way where it's easy, simple, right? That's how you make things simple and easy, by like systemizing them and then the way you operate, creating habits. But it does take intention, for sure.
so intentional habits, they really define, I think, the way we do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get them to become habits, you're right. You have to intentionally put them in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I don't let my habits define me necessarily.
No.
So what I do is I look at what I do every day. I'm like, why did I do that? Was that a habit? Or was that I did it intentionally or unintentionally? And so I'm always looking at every action I take and to see the benefit of that action. I mean, everything, even from which shoe did I put on just now? Sometimes I get a little crazy with myself, but it allows me to see things differently than what most people take for granted.
Mhm.
And I think when we take things for granted, when we take another person for granted, we can be left standing there holding nothing.
Yeah, agreed. Complacency is the worst thing, right?
Well,
you want to be aware of what you do, why you do things, and so on. And there's definitely part, I always teach that to my clients, you don't maybe need to do it every minute, but you want to look back on a regular basis and evaluate things, not only in your business, but in your, how you operate and what you do, and say, hey, like, yeah, I'm doing that, but is that like still serving me? Maybe it doesn't. Right. And sometimes it's hard to notice. Like sometimes, we do something, it creates a negative result and we see it right away, but sometimes we don't. So if you don't pause and reevaluate, you might be doing something that doesn't even serve you, wasting time and energy on it. Yeah.
I got to tell you, Maggie, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for bringing your insights and sharing with us the kind of person that you've become. And I love who you've become. The fact that you're willing to share this knowledge, I'm grateful for that. So thank you for today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I'm sorry we had a little glitch there, but you're a trooper and you hung out. So thank you for that. It was truly an amazing time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Yeah, everybody, thank you. And if you like the show, which you should, because I had Maggie on, go ahead and share it with other people. So many great tidbits. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
And is it not working?